Meeting this afternoon. Appreciate you taking time away from your mapping because I know that has been occupying some of your thoughts over the last little while. So we would like to approve the minutes of the August 27th and September 3rd meetings. Allie has emailed those out. Did anybody have any changes that they'd like to recommend?
I move we approve the minutes. This is mailed to us.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. A second. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't hear any because I heard everybody say aye. So the motion carries. I'd like to turn some time over to staff to discuss our amended public hearing schedule. Is that we had mentioned we've got a couple of additional requests to make some trips, as well as changing a couple of dates.
All right, thank you. So what we have is we've had some requests for some additional meetings. So I wanted to go over that, as well as some changes that we need to do for some logistics. So let me go over the first one. On the 29th, we've been requested by Navajo Nation to go to Mexican water. And so that wasn't originally on our schedule. That's a Wednesday. And what we would do is we would drive down, it's about a 6-hour drive to Mexican water. 6.5 hours. Depends on the driver.
And they're Howard Patrol.
Did you say 6.5?
No, we're gonna go fast.
You know where this place is?
It's been explained.
Anyway, we feel it'd be important to talk to. We feel it's important to be a part. And so we'd recommend going there. The second one is we've been working with the city of Saratoga Springs. We weren't able to quite get a venue that would hold it, but we have been talking also to the city staff at Eagle Mountain. And so we would like to move the venue from Saratoga Springs to Eagle Mountain. They're right next to each other. They both experienced the same level of tremendous growth in Utah County. So we feel like that venue represents the area that we intended it to. Moab, has been asking for us to go out there. They been extraordinarily welcoming, wanting us to have a hearing out there. And so we looked at a date that would work. They would like us there on a Wednesday night, and that is October 13th. Would work best for all of us. And then the last one is we need to just change the date for the Harriman from the 22nd to the 21st. So the 21st would be the new date. That's a Thursday, would be the same time, 6 in the evening at their city hall. So those are the changes we're recommending, and we want to have the commission make a motion to approve those new hearing dates.
So I do want to remind all the commissioners that we understand that some of you will not be able to join us in person in Mexican water or Moab, for example, and you're welcome to participate online. We're trying to make sure that, especially in the Mexican water case, that we have internet coverage.
It would be great if we could have at least a quorum attend to Mexican water, just in case internet's spotty. So we'd love to at least make sure we're doing that there. Just.
I'm sorry.
I just have 2 questions. Number one, I assume when we do Provo on Friday night, it doesn't say the time, but Friday night, and then Eagle Mountain at 9 a.m. the next morning, for some of us who have to travel a few miles or be at hotel.
Yes, we could work that out with those.
Okay. The second question I have is there was some discussion about going to Park City, and I don't see Park City.
Yeah, we've talked with their mayor, and I don't think that's necessary. Initially, we were looking at that, but we're going to be okay.
Do you have, I'm sorry,
Please, no, you're perfectly fine, Commissioner.
do you have the times of day for all of them?
Yeah, so the weekdays, we're going to do those in the evening at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Saturdays, we'll be doing those at 11. And I think we have one Saturday afternoon, because we have one on 2 days. It was,
So we have Eagle Mountain and Tooele on the same day.
yes. And one's at noon on Saturday and one's in the evening on Saturday. We figured those were close enough venues that we would be able to do those two.
Another question.
Please.
The
Commissioner.
Mexican water event, are we gonna stay overnight?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I'm gonna drive 8 o'clock.
in Moab, so.
Okay.
But we'll get a venue and we'll spend the night for those who go down there, just because we don't want people driving 12 hours.
That one will be at 6.
Yeah, we're finishing up with that. That's when we anticipate 6 o'clock. And that will be next week.
Did you check the time with them, Mountain Time versus Navajo time? Because they're in 3 states.
Yeah.
They operate with a reservation on one unified time. And
We'll make sure.
is-
We've said words, but they may not carry the same meaning, what you're saying, and that I agree with you. So Julianne is in contact with them and we're finishing up the details. So we'll give you more details on that as we get closer to it, but we'll make sure that we arrive at the time that we're supposed to arrive there at.
Can we get a revised printout of the?
Yeah, so if
adjusted
you approve
schedule
that,
when
we'll
you-
print
when
this
it's
out
done?
for everybody.
Thank you.
In fact, we could probably do it today almost, so
If it was mailed to us, emailed to us.
let's email it out to you. So you can all
I
have
move
it.
we approve the public meetings as set.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the meetings. Any further discussion? I'm hearing any. I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
And given that that was an affirmative of everyone, I will not call for the nays.
We'll be putting that on the website tomorrow morning, so everybody will see the 2 additional ones, and the changes to the dates and the venues.
The location, I think that'd be helpful too.
And we next have the staff discussing a budget amendment.
Yeah, so I've elected to, I'm gonna tell you where we are. We're about $15,000 in the black. Maybe 13, depending on how you think about things. But we're gonna have to make some amendments, and I wanted to just wait another 2 weeks. So I'm gonna maybe next week. So the next time we have a regular meeting, I'll bring you the amendments to get us there. So I put it on there, and I would like to withdraw it
Okay.
as an item.
So just, we'll have to move some money from one expenditure item to another. But we'll go ahead and wait. Then. Our staff has been reviewing the public comments and creating a mechanism to help us digest those. And Soraya is going to walk us through that process.
Okay, so I'll just move here so you can see me better. So what we've been working on is just having a format for you to be able to really be able to access the comments and to have it more just readable, friendly to use as you're doing your mapping and revising the maps already done. So I'll create a binder for each team, and you can tell me if you want things added, if you want things taken away. But right now what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a section where you'll have all of the comments that are done on the drafted maps. So just very specific feedback on what you, and you've seen those comments already, they'll just all be in the binder, and we'll add them as we get them.
Excuse me, Soraya, do you say that each member will have her own, or will
Each team,
Commissioner Thorne and I share the same?
yeah, like you will share a binder.
If you wanted, you could
Yeah.
have your own. We thought we'd put one at each
Yeah.
table where you're mapping. We didn't, but if you would like to take it home, or you'd like to have your own one,
Then I can make
we
one.
would produce it that way. We just didn't know that everybody would want one. Okay, so Lyle gets one by
Maybe you want
himself, the
to
rest will
stay.
share. Sorry, Lyle, we'll make sure you get your own.
So we'll have a section of that, and then we will have a section of all the comments that are specific to mapping. So how, if they tell you how they want congressional maps to look or where they want things divided, because some comments have just been really specific and
So those will be comments not tied to one of the maps that we've done,
no,
but they're more general mapping give
Mhm,
guidelines.
Like they may say, I don't like the current map this because it's split this way or, so.
Very specific. These are not general, these are detailed
Mhm.
comments for each.
Please.
Again, I hate to keep
No,
commenting,
You're
but
fine.
I don't really want to spend time reading comments that are really not relevant. In other words, if somebody sends a comment that Salt Lake County should be in one congressional district, that should be it. Obviously, they can't, it's too big. So you may want to put them in the book you want so we can look at that, but I don't want to spend time reading things that really we can't apply.
So this group that she has right here are talking about specific locations of communities so you may hear that they say, Moab, please don't split us 3 times. We feel that very specific and doable and a useful comment. So you're going to see those right here in this section she has.
Yeah.
So comments that we feel are relevant. Some of these you've heard, but so she's going through all the comments that are coming in through the email. And so the first section is just on specific maps. The second section are specific that we think are specific for specific things. And then she'll go through the rest of that.
And then we'll have a section of maps that people have drawn so you can look and see, just have a section of that if it, you can look as you're doing the mapping. And then we'll have all the comments available. So then as you're mapping, you can go through and look through it and see what are we looking at now, what's most applicable to what we're doing. And just then those comments can be most useful to you.
So the end is all the comments.
Yeah.
So each group can have all of them, but it's that last section that has every comment.
Mhm. But it'll be marked so that if you want to
So
look
it
at
has
that.
tabs for each
Yeah.
location.
So any questions, concerns
How many comments have we gotten in each category?
in each category? I don't know specific category. I think we've gotten about 100 comments, would you say? Yeah, 150 comments. So we've gotten quite a few, and that's just through email and the Google form. So then there's been other comments through better boundaries and things like that.
The feedback on the maps that you have
Was that
up,
what you were talking about?
those have, Congressional has like 100 comments. I'm not gonna lie to you, I haven't sorted through them, so those ones I've just had printed out for Soraya today, but we can look through those later. And then Senate, I think there's like 14 comments. House, there's around like 20. School board, you have 2 comments so far. It's not as popular, so you get lots of congressional.
Do we keep record of the comments made in our meetings? That may be helpful too in the book of books, say the comments we received in
Okay,
Heber City and the comments and
yeah, I've been keeping track of those,
Washington.
so I can make a section for those. Okay,
Other questions? So,
and you'll have a chance to look at it and you can let me know what you think, if you want things added or taken away
and so when will the binders be available?
tomorrow.
Okay,
We're
we're mapping tomorrow, we'll have access to
Yeah.
the binders.
Exactly, yeah. And then the other thing we wanted to show you was we put all of the comments on the website. So now the public will be able to go and see each of the comments. So Christelle went through and linked all of them. And so, yeah, if you go to participate in public comment, people will just be able to go find their comments. We took out all the specific details of where they live, things like that, but and you have access to those and the public will have access as well.
So they can see their comments, be aware that you have them. So we thought it wouldn't be prudent for you to have to go to the website. So that's why we're giving you. So this is basically the equivalent of the book, but this is in a format that we think is more consumable for you while you're doing the drawing. But anybody's can go to the website and find their comment and then comment on somebody else's comment. But this way they don't have anybody's specific details. So it's not like you can target somebody if you don't agree about their comment. So now we have all that detail, but we're not throwing it out there randomly, so.
Are these comments that accompany the maps that people are submitting, or are they separate from any community of interest map? They're just general comments?
Yeah, general comments.
These are just the
Sent
ones
through
that
email.
are coming in with just the text.
Some people
No,
have
Text
sent
only, no
a
map.
map, but yeah.
These are not the Esri comments or the better boundary comments. These are so we're trying to keep them separate. So these are, so you have the mapping of better, the better boundary ones, or the people have done through Esri. And then you have full complete maps. So we're treating them all three separate different ways: the text maps, maps, and the complete maps. So that's how you're going to see those.
And if I might add really quick, there have been a couple, and I'll talk about in a minute, some people who have submitted communities of interest where they just highlight the whole state and then just like give a comment on congressional districts as general. So we're taking those out of the communities of interest, and then I'm working with Soraya to instead get those moved over to just regular text comments. So any community of interest comments that aren't really community of interest comments are getting moved over.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate having access to those comments.
Of course.
Next, we have Bo and Joey. Speaking of communities of interest, they've been hard at work and getting some guidance also from Commissioner Baker. So
Yes.
thank you to Commissioner Baker for helping out.
And I want to thank Bo. I unfortunately had a class, so it's just me presenting, but he's here in spirit. And I appreciate Commissioner Baker working with me. We wouldn't have been able to do this without him. I just kind of wanted to, in the spirit of transparency, go over how we're collecting data, how we're refining it, and how we're getting to the point, the final product, which you'll see. So I kind of made this little model right here. So you can see we have three sources for communities of interest. We have the communities of interest coming from our website, and then also from Better Boundaries with Katie over here, and then Better Utah as well. And so we're feeding all of those into our main community of interest map. And then we're
Better Utah.
They're another group.
Alliance, so but they're a group that's working with public engagement. They're part of the Redistricting Coalition, I believe. But yes.
So there's anybody that gives us maps. The most maps are coming from Better Boundary, but we're getting maps from other sources. But Better Utah is a group that seems to be producing a little higher volume of those. So that's why you see them there specifically.
Yes.
So anybody that's working to get us maps, we're going to show them.
So we import all those, and then we bring them into one main map, the community of interest. And then we sort them into the 9 categories, which Commissioner Baker talked about in the Washington City meeting. And then we can then use this data as a layer for the software. So kind of like the cities and towns layer, we can use it while we're mapping. It can be on a web map for the public, so the public can view it. And then you guys can also view it, and other people can embed it in their websites. There's a lot of possibilities. So let's go like that. So the first step is collecting and refining data. So you can see this is our GIS Pro, and it's really messy. It's just a big jumble of lines right here. And what Bo and I have been doing is we've been going through, and I know it's kind of hard to see these data tables, but we go through and we interpret all the data and we bring it in to a format that the software can use. That part's not super important. And then we screen and sort data. So I took a snippet, just an example of some of our, not necessarily rejected data, but data that won't show up in the communities of interest. So you can see we had a test one down here, so we were able to get that out. But then we have somebody who just commented Spanish Fork and highlighted all of Utah County. And then like somebody who didn't leave a comment, but highlighted all of Utah County. And it's so basically things that aren't describing communities of interest. And if they clearly drew their personal neighborhood, even though they didn't leave a comment, we're leaving that as a community of interest because that's still their neighborhood. But examples like this are people who have done whole entire counties and didn't describe it. So that's an example of some of the data that it still exists if we want to review it, but it won't be appearing in our maps. And then what we do is we bring in that big jumble of lines, and Commissioner Baker brings it into overlays that look like this. And so you can kind of see the areas that have more focus up here in darker blue, and then the regular areas. And this is the economic map. So this is the one we'll just be looking at for the rest of the evening. And then the white areas are the areas with only one community of interest. And then what we can do is we can bring it into a user-friendly map. So, and you guys might have seen a sneak peek. Let me put this up here. So if you come to our website, just to the, why isn't my mouse? There we go. Just to the main area, and you go to participate and click public comment. And all of the commissioners can do this when they get home. Members of the public can also do this. And you go to view communities of interest. This is going to take you to what's called a web map, which is a very user-friendly way of viewing this data. So we went from that big mess and we made it a little bit more transparent to an area like this, where you can then click on a community of interest and you can read the comment right here. And you can do that the same if you scroll into Salt Lake and you want to get one of the darker regions like that. So you can see dramatic increase in population and transit everywhere. They want to keep this area together because it's exploding a lot like that. And we have all 9 categories. So this section right here, and I'll just add really quick that this is still a work in progress. So I believe we still have about 200 better boundaries, communities of interest that we're still trying to go through. So it is a work in progress and it's going to be constantly, yes.
So how many maps, community of interest maps?
So in this software right now, there's 370 communities of interest. And then we have about 200, 225 left of better boundaries to come in. Bo and I have been working that through the day, but we have to update it. And we're hoping that the communities of interest will be completely up to date by the end of the week. But this is about 350, 370 maps, give or take. So yeah, you can go over here.
Joey, I'm gonna keep following you.
No, you're good.
I remember when we were in Heber City, if I recall correctly, it was either the mayor of Park City or a county commissioner of Summit County who made the point that Park City and its environments are not the same as the east part of Summit County.
Yes.
And therefore they should be separate districts. And then somebody else stood up, and I took by what they said, pretty articulate, said, no, there's so many people now in the east part of the county that are tied in. It really is one county. How do you measure when you get conflicting views of what a community of interest is? And do we have any way of weighing them? Or in other words, if say Mayor Wilson, Salt Lake County stood up and gave me a comment, I would really want to take note of that. And compared to somebody else, just a citizen standing up and saying, well, I disagree with that. I think it's this and this and this. Do you have any way you can weigh them, or we can take that, or just you have the words on the paper and you give them equal weight, you don't know what to do with them?
And that's definitely something we can look into. And Commissioner Baker, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know of any big public officials or mayors that have submitted communities of interest. They're mainly just doing actual comments, just on text. And we actually had an issue with one of the environmental ones. A lot of them are really big and they describe things just like that. And what we're doing is we're moving those into the comments, like Soraya said. We're only keeping communities of interest that actually describe the area. So if somebody put all of Summit County, for instance, and they said Summit County needs protected water rights or something like that, we're going to move that into comments because that's not necessarily describing an environmental community. Whereas there was somebody who described their community of cabins and said, we all hunt and fish together, we want to be kept together. And so that's something that would be considered environmental, whereas a big vague comment kind of encompassing the whole county or an entire watershed would come in as a text comment instead.
That raises an issue too. If there are people with cabins up wherever it may be, but they live in Salt Lake or Provo or someplace, they don't really vote there.
That's true. And that's why we can use this software, and you can see the overlays, because if there's just one little section right there, just one community of interest, you can take that into account and you can say there's a good chance that they don't vote here. And we can actually look at that at the tool and see whether or not those cabins have a population. But primarily the good use of this is we can see like the really dense centers have a lot of communities of interest, whereas the outskirts, cabins like that, they don't have as many. And I don't know if you wanted to add anything onto that, Commissioner Baker.
I do, and there's probably 100 different statistical measures that we could apply to this, but we are deliberately avoiding that. The minute we would do that, we're diluting the voice of the citizen. And so we're simply taking these communities of interest, each boundary that each person draws, and stacking them one on top of another, like a stack of pancakes. And we can see, for example, in the map up here, the darkest blue is where the most people have drawn around what they consider an economic community. So the map that we see here is 100% from the citizens, undiluted, at face value, as the citizens see it. So we're not going to run any statistical information for that very purpose. So we're keeping the voice of the citizen as loud as we can.
Okay. Commissioner Durham.
Actually, my comments have been covered.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's really quick, anybody can log on here. And this is open to the members of the public too. You can see that I have economic selected right here. And also come down to educational, local government, anything like that. You can view those. You can, we took out all the personal information, so all the public will be able to see is the city, the county, the name, and also the comment. But we also have emails, zip codes, and stuff like that collected for reference in the future. So does anybody have any, oh, really quick. And then I wanted to show you, so we can, there's a lot of options when it comes to this. So I opened the redistricting tool here. And I need to mess with the transparency because I know it's a little bit light here. But you can kind of see that we can bring it into the map and we can see the areas. This is the current house map. So you can see what communities of interest, if you want to overlay that and see how your map has affected certain communities of interest, we can do that as well. So there's really a lot of possibilities when it comes to this.
Can you zoom into that darkest area of the
Yeah.
thing and then compare it back to the other map you had up there? You see that dark rectangular area there. You can see the same one right there.
Right there.
And then this area is that really dark blue rectangle. And I'll play around. We just got this up today. So again, big work in progress. We'll mess with some of the transparency things, see what we like, what works best for the commission, so that you guys can use these communities of interest side by side when you're mapping.
One more thought, Joey.
Yeah.
That one there, if we were concerned about drawing boundaries through a community of interest, right where that cursor is right there, we split that community right in half. Whichever, I'm not gonna ask which team did that one. So it might be worth reviewing where the boundaries go, because there is pretty clearly a community that got chopped in half there.
May I suggest that we do that, have you give us the map? I don't want to spend the time trying to figure all that stuff out. If you could give me a map and here's your orange, this, and these are your problems. I think we've talked about staff doing that.
Yes.
Because I haven't really looked at the city boundaries. I have tried some, but I'm sure we've cut up cities that we shouldn't have done just because we're working on numbers and global. So you can
Yes.
highlight those so I don't have to.
And another thing I think it'll be useful with is, let's say you're in an area like Provo that has to be split into 3 house districts. Somebody named Daniel Friend, who's from the Provo area, and he'll actually be presenting some maps today, submitted a bunch of neighborhoods saying, don't split this one up, don't split this one up. And so you can overlay this onto that map and say, okay, we have to split Provo into 3 districts. Where are we going to put those lines to minimize splitting communities of interest? So exactly like that, we'll run a report saying, here's some things that you split, and then you can also use them side by side when you're mapping too.
Please. So again, this is a ton of information and it's difficult to know all of this stuff. And so one of the thoughts I have for you is you move forward, try these maps, but I think what they can really help with is when you start the process to get down to your 12 maps. And then when you start refining those 12 maps and you're saying, okay, we're gonna have to, these community of interest are really going to play a big role of that. I don't necessarily want you to take all 12 of your congressional maps and redo all those to hit that, because you're going to throw out 9 of them. And so 9 of them getting refined doesn't make sense to me. So I think you have a general purpose with those, but I think as you go forward, start practicing by pulling up some of these communities of interest and looking, and because I think this will help you know where to say, should we split it on 7th East or 13th East? Should we split it? You know, that's where I think these maps are going to be very helpful. So, and you'll be able to click on the comment and read the comment, and it'll give you an idea if you think that's important or not important, because you're going to obviously split somewhere else that you're going to have to weigh if that's the right choice or not. But having the comments, having the maps, and then refining the final maps is really the goal here. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much.
Or know everything and do it right the first time. So that's the other option. Do it that way. And I recommend that always, but
And then just the last thing I forgot to mention, we have the legend on the side. So you can see that that darkest color blue means that there's 20 areas that encompass this. And then that goes out obviously to the one areas right over here. So yeah, you can log on to the website and play around with that and get familiar with it.
And like Commissioner Baker said, this is undiluted. So there is, we could run this through a number of processes, and the processes would define what has the highest and lowest priority. This way, you get to decide that because it's undiluted. You're going to have to weigh that. And since you were selected as the most wise of the citizens of Utah, I think that makes it the right process.
I will defer to my colleagues who have sat on the judiciary for the wisdom in slicing things. It's Solomon of old recommended perhaps. So we now have, so again, thank you, Joey. We appreciate the work that you and Bo are doing, and especially appreciate the assistance that Commissioner Baker has provided, as well as I think this is also a good time to remind the public that we are very grateful for the volunteers that have been helping us in a range of ways, but especially with our mapping. We've had a number of GIS experts come in and spend countless hours helping us map, and we're really appreciative of not only the work of our staff, but also the work of the volunteers who have spent considerable time with us. So thank you. Cassidy, if you could help us understand some of the completed maps that we've done. And then after Cassidy's done, we have two people with us, one virtually and one here in person, who have completed maps, and we've asked them to talk about it. So Cassidy?
Yeah, so we're actually going to talk about the completed public maps, but don't worry, we'll talk about your maps more as you continue mapping this week. But before I talk about that, I want to discuss some things that we can now do to help you map better. So as you know, when you're mapping in our tool, you can pull up the reports tab and it'll give you all the districts and put an asterisk next to counties that you've split and cities that you've split. But it's not very helpful because it doesn't give you the total, right? It just kind of gives you each district. Well, I created a software that I can run that through, so it'll count how many times that city shows up in a different district or how many times that county shows up in a different district. So I can tell you, I can say, all right, Salt Lake County exists in 28 House districts. And then you can look, I'm like, am I above average? Am I below average? And then I can say, okay, you split this really small city of, I guess Moab's decently small. You split Moab, like I can tell you that, or like cities you may not be familiar with. So that's something new I can do for you, and you can request that at any point once your map is completed. And that's where I'm getting some of the stats for the maps that we're reviewing today, just so you're aware, because that can help you out because there's lots of cities varying in size. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I wonder if we could present an award to the city with the strangest boundary.
Oh my gosh, I got
So
some
you
candidates.
look at it and you say, holy cow, how can you make that precise?
Yeah, I was gonna say Spanish for.
Yeah, and that's another thing to keep in mind too, like this software doesn't tell you that you're splitting off like a zero population. It's not that advanced. So like if you're going in and you're like, oh my goodness, like I did not split this city this many times. Like the other day, Purple Team, I'm like, where is this final split? They have like 5 splits and it was a 0 block, like in the corner of the city boundary. And I was like, oh, okay, it was hard to find by the eye though. So like you might have to do some cross-referencing, and like you can decide whether it's appropriate or not to split off like a 0 block from its city. Like if it's an argument of compactness, obviously that's up to you. But this at least gives you a tool that you know, okay, there's some blocks that belong to this city and isn't there, or maybe they shouldn't be there. And again, like these are the boundaries that Esri has. So like there are going to be people out there who say, well, I'm not officially in that city, but I identify with that city. So it's not a perfect system, but it helps give you some information. So anyways, Joey, if you could open up our website really quick, actually. So we have uploaded all of the full public submitted maps along with our maps on the website. So right now we have a ton of congressional maps. And if Joey, will you go over to the bars and just kind of like scroll to show that we have the public's map on the far right side.
Yes.
So people can go ahead and scroll down and see that we have included all these public maps, and we've just put like an initial of who submitted them. And they actually can fill out the public comment forms for these maps as well, because I think it's interesting to hear people say, oh, like, I like this map that this person has submitted. And you can feel free to pull these up as you're mapping as well. And if you actually zoom in on a certain area, so Joey, you pick a city and just like zoom in to that city, doesn't matter, any city. If you decide you want to look at how a different map treats that city, you can click the other tab and it'll stay on that city. So there we saw Salt Lake split in one way. It has a lot of maps, it needs to think. I uploaded a ton more in there today. So you can see the same area of Salt Lake is still within this district. I think it's really helpful when you get to house, because then you can see, okay, someone chose to split it this way. Maybe I'm going to split this a different way instead. So this is something you can look at as you're mapping or during your spare time. So we have all the public's map on there. I think we have 14 congressional maps that were submitted. So we have a plethora of congressional maps, and we had a few others. And we're going to go and look through some of the stats like we did last week of those maps. So Joey, if you could pull up my slides. Perfect. And we're gonna start with House because we always start with congressional, and I wanted to shake it up a little bit. I was kind of getting sick of congressional maps as I loaded up the 14 of them into the app. I was like, all right. So go ahead, Joey. So these are some of the maps that have been submitted. And if you want, you can cross these numbers with the maps themselves if you want to get out like a device and look at the maps. And I'm working on creating a list of reports that has like, okay, these are the cities, these people split, and these are the counties, and I'll give you those tomorrow. So that way you can like have them available to you to compare across the board. So we have one map that was submitted that doesn't meet the requirement that you set for population deviation. The other two look good. And we're seeing similar deviations as we've mapped with House. So I just picked the minimum and the maximum instead of listing out all 75. So that's kind of the spread we're seeing there. All right, Joe, you can move to the next slide. In terms of compactness, we're doing well, the public and you guys as well. So all of these numbers for compactness are either equal or beating the maps that we saw from the last redistricting cycle. And I think that's an appropriate goal as long as your compactness on average is meeting what has been passed before. I think that's totally reasonable, right? So I think we're doing good there. Most of the time we're achieving over what has been done before. I think where this will be different is in the congressional districts, and that's just choosing how you decide where you want to put people and what kind of shapes you want. All right, Joey, next slide. So these are like county splits. And yes.
What is the DF, DSH, the TD?
Oh, those are all just different maps.
It's the
So
initials of
it's the initials of the maps.
Okay, I heard 4 people talking right there.
So it's just like, so if you were to look on our website, this is what they're labeled under as. So you can go under our map website and say public submission DF. That's what it stands for.
So somebody named with the initials DF.
Yeah, so that's
did
Daniel,
that map.
right,
Okay.
made that map.
Someone from the public.
Someone from the public,
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I should have explained that. Let me just hope you understand my system of ranking. That word makes sense in my head. So these are total county splits, and I put this in parentheses because it's not like a traditional split. This is like how many pieces of counties exist that are separate from each other. Does that make sense? So there are, I think, a total split of like a certain amount of counties, and this is how many splits exist. So this isn't saying there's obviously more splits than there are districts. And that's only because like some districts have like 2 counties in them or 3 counties in them. So this is just kind of like if you were to total up all the splits, if I gave you the list. And I think it makes way more sense in the list. So if you go to the next slide, I kind of said, okay, this is how many districts are existing in counties that do have splits. So if there's a 0, that means this person elected to keep their like that county intact. But I've also seen plans that have up to 11 districts that county is found in. Does that make sense?
Okay, let me be sure I'm understanding. So Salt Lake has 28 districts.
A piece of Salt Lake County is in 28 districts, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so
So some are-
piece of Salt Lake County is in 28 districts. That's what that means.
So some of them are full, right? So like
Right,
there's
and
gonna be
some of them
some,
are
you can
partial.
fit districts and some are partial.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, because it's hard to say like, okay, like what's a split for the program as it currently exists, like what split versus what isn't, if you're just looking at as an output. But when you have it with the map, I think it's easier to understand like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm on track. Like I can see which ones are split. So this is just kind of what like the program is spitting out. And some of these that have 0, they might have 0 in one plan, but they don't have 0 in a different plan, right? So like you choose to split one county, but that doesn't mean that you aren't splitting another county down the road. And something I can share with you is I have a file that has the different counties that are split, and it has like the different plans compared to one another. It's like, oh, okay, like, well, this county is split in this plan, but it isn't in this plan. So for example, in Daniel Friend's plan, he doesn't split anything in Wasatch County. Wasatch County is whole. But in the other 2 plans, Wasatch County exists in 3 different districts. So that's something to consider as well. And that comes down to like, does it make sense to split these counties in a certain way, or does it make more sense to keep them intact? And that's where public comment can help you. Yeah.
Another question, will your device, your screening device, be able to show us as we look at any map, how many districts that map has split?
Yeah, I can
Or
get
how
that
many
information.
counties or
Mhm.
cities or whatever?
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
currently I have it in Excel, which I think makes the most sense. It's hard to like try and like transfer what is in Excel to a good way to you guys via paper or anything else. But I can share that file, and that way you can see, and I can add your plans to it as well. And you can say, okay, so this green plan has split it here, but this purple plan has split it here. And then you can get on to the maps and look at kind of the differences. So that's something that we can consider as we go along. And it might be interesting to see like some of these that have lower end splits. So for example, you have the splits in Davis County, like there's a plan with 9, 10, and 11. But then again, the splits look different in other places, right? Because the population has to go somewhere. So in the plan that has Davis County split across like 9 districts, in Duchesne, it's split across 3, where the other 2 plans have them split in 2, but have a higher Davis. So kind of all just moves around. And there's not necessarily a right answer until you get more information from the public in other places. All right, let's move on. Oh, I guess, Gordon, do you want to have people comment on their maps that are here?
So what we thought we would do is, now they're on the House maps, let's just have the people that want to talk about House maps, then we'll move to Senate and school district. So we're not seeing them all, and then it's better to do just the House. My interpretation was it's better just to do the House, and then we'll move on to the next level. So do we have the folks that could talk about their House maps?
So we have a couple of folks that with us. We have Stuart Hepworth, who's with us. And so Stuart, if you could tell us a little bit about your house map, I guess. I believe they're pulling it up right now.
Should I hold this up to? Okay, cool. Hello, so I'm Stuart Hepworth, University of Utah student from South Jordan. This is my house map. So for this map, I try to prioritize not keeping cities basically whole and keeping communities of interest together. So it's a lot to, it's hard to talk generally about the whole map when there's 75 different districts, and it's way too much to just go over in depth. So I try to avoid splitting neighborhoods up in cities with very well-established neighborhoods. I try to one of the important things for me in all my maps is keeping districts road contiguous, so you can drive from one end of the district to another without crossing into another district. So that's that should be reflected in all of these districts here. But could we get a general like zoomed in pan throughout the state if any of the commissioners have anything to specifically that they have questions about?
When you did split a city, what was your main, was it roads that you primarily used for splitting a city?
Yeah.
And your communities, how did you, is it just your personal knowledge of communities of interest, or?
Personal knowledge and trying to keep up with what people were saying online about the process.
I can have some fun with you. Go to Cache County. I'm just looking at Cache County. It looks at there that you've made a district of Rich County and part of Cache. I don't know whether they went on mountain lines because Rich County is not big enough for a half district.
Not nearly big enough.
So then it looks like you've taken the southwest part of Cache County and put it in district with Ogden, Weaver County.
So that district, it covers a small part of Cache County. I can,
Millsville, I assume.
yes. And then it covers the parts of Box Elder County that didn't fit in District 1, which is a tiny part of Brigham City, and then like Perry on down, Perry, Willard, etc. And then it has all of Pleasant View and most of North Ogden.
I just, as you talk about that, I know you can't get through Wellsville to that without going through Sardine Canyon into Box Elder County. And I don't know how much community interest you got between Wellsville and Pleasant View. But I mean, and I'm not being overly critical because I'm critical of every one of the maps I've tried to put together. But I just looked at that and I thought, holy cow, that might turn it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's a funky looking district. However, the Cache County portion is only 5,000 people. So.
You wanted to go north now?
Yeah, I want to go further north up the Idaho line. See, what happened many years ago, we used to have Rich County in the House District as part of Logan. And it looks like now you have them part of South Cache, that area, which again, you have to drive through Logan Canyon and through Logan to get to that part of the area. They're really not, they're contiguous on the map, but they're really not contiguous as far as people going from one to the other. You certainly get there, but it's not.
Up a little more north, Joey?
Yeah, that is. That's got Logan.
Yeah, the current map has no district that's just solely contained in Logan, and it wasn't hard to do it, so I figured might as well.
So Logan City is bigger than a one.
Yes.
District.
It's about 10K bigger.
I just point that out because I just traditionally in the past, now Rich County is with Morgan and Summit County. It's not with Cache because Cache, it gave Cache too many and it bumped over Box Elder County. And Box Elder County had to get out to Willa and now into Weber County and talk about community of interest. There's not a lot of community interest in all of those areas, but that's part of the problem you have, I think, when you try to take an exact number of 43,000.
Box Elder County going into Tooele is my biggest pet peeve, looking at maps people create.
All right, any other questions, Mr. Hepworth, on this map?
Do you want to scroll down further, go through the Ogden and then Davis, Salt Lake, Utah area? And then we can do a more zoomed out view of southern Utah if anyone has any questions.
Well, I have a question in that it's not a specific question about the map, but it's a question about what did you find the most difficult to deal with? What was the biggest challenge you encountered as you were trying to value the things that you've identified and still get a map with contiguity, compactness, all the rest of the technical details?
I don't know. It's the hardest thing to deal with. I've been making maps for so long. It's become kind of routine to me at this point. So I don't know if anything really stands out as particularly difficult to deal with in creating this. The Utah's geography is pretty uniquely hard as someone who values cohesiveness and road contiguity. Compared to other states, it's a lot harder to create districts that are compact and are road contiguous. With Utah's geography, you have areas that look like they should be connected on a map, like you went in Grand County, for example, that there's no real way to get between them.
There's some good dirt roads.
Airplane.
I've got a friend in, there's a chat room that we're in, just people who draw maps, around the country. One of them also lives in Utah, and he's joked about driving the 100-mile or whatever dirt road between Tooele and Box Elder County. And I've questioned the wisdom of that.
But I would dare say that the people in Box Elder County and especially Wellsville and Cache County have more interest with the rural areas of Tooele than they do the Pleasant View area of North Ogden. That's totally different kinds of communities.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Oh, I was just
Sharon.
going to ask Stuart, where did you start with your house map?
I did all the corner areas, and then I moved inward to Salt Lake and Utah. I think that's the only reasonable way to get a decent map out of this.
We found out the same, we found out the hard way. Yes.
I found out the hard way, but I had a few years to find that out, so.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to draw the map, and we have the opportunity to view it and to compare it to the maps that we've been doing, and we appreciate the work of staff in evaluating these maps as well.
Yeah, and just to comment on Stuart's map, something that I will hand to him that he did really well is in terms of, if you look at his list of cities, like the list I gave you guys that talks about how many splits are across, he does a very good job of making sure that as the population decreases in cities, that those splits are less. So in some of the other house maps that have been submitted, and we've talked about this as a commission as well, Tooele being a place that's been split up a lot, right? So I think in your map, you have, I think Tooele split up into 4 different districts, but in other maps I've seen up to 7 or 8. So he does a really good job at saying, okay, Salt Lake is split across 8 different districts, but then if you move down a bracket in population, Layton is split across 4 instead of it being like weird numbers. So as you map, I think looking at Stuart's map and how he kind of handles those population numbers is not necessarily a bad idea, and to look back at your own map and see like, all right, does this make sense? Does this go down as I'm getting to cities that have less populations? So nice work.
Thank
Well,
you.
and I have to say that notwithstanding what happens when you zoom in, it's a nice looking map aesthetically. You don't have any Godzilla districts, which is what we've struggled
I'm gonna
with.
say, have you been looking at our map?
Yeah,
Stop laughing.
the Cache 2 Pleasant View district is probably the most aesthetically difficult to look at, but that's just hard to do with the geography of the area.
Thank you very much. Now, we also have online, is that correct?
Yes. So Rob is online too.
Oh, terrific. We have Commissioner Bishop that has joined us online, so thank you.
Are you guys next?
Daniel, you should be able to talk now. Can you hear us?
Oh, I was waiting for Commissioner Bishop to go first. I heard he was wanting to say something.
No, he's just on, he's online.
Very well, then I will start talking about my house map. Commissioners, thank you for your attention today. I started my map up at Rich and Cache County and moved down the state toward the southwest. And my goal was to keep cities together as much as possible. For instance, Eagle Mountain is a single district. It's off by only 1 person. Riverton is a single district as well. I mean, if there's ever communities that shouldn't be divided, it's cities that meet the right number of people. In addition, there are also cities that if you combine them with their neighbors in whole numbers, they end up having the right number of people as well. You have, for instance, Cedar City and Enoch together. It looks like a little island, but it's the right number of people to go together. And there are some others as well. Now, it was pointed out earlier that my map does not quite have the numbers exactly right. I apologize for that. It was my erroneous understanding that I couldn't even submit a map unless it actually passed the numbers test. Obviously, it got submitted anyway. I would be very happy to adjust this map for the commission and present it again on your time in Provo and see if I can get the numbers a little bit better for you guys. I am very happy though about how compact my districts were if I'm reading the slides correctly that were presented earlier. Mostly what I want to talk about is Provo, because that's where I live. That's where I know the most about it. In the chat, I would like, if it's permitted, to drop you a couple of PDFs.
Yeah, you can do that.
Is not letting me. Joey, I will email those or try to drop them in the chat when I'm done talking about it, just so that I don't take up too much presentation time on a technicality. Provo has a neighborhood system that has been going on for decades with defined neighborhood boundaries. All right, okay, am I back?
Yes. We just lost it.
We've lost you now.
I just wanted to, you should be able to chat now if you want to send those PDFs over.
All right,
You're good.
let's make sure that works. There we go. The maps I've just put into the chat are maps that I got from Provo City. Each of these neighborhoods has defined boundaries. Each of these neighborhoods elects a neighborhood chair that liaises with the city and the people in their neighborhood, runs social events, runs a Facebook group, and generally facilitates communication. You'll see that our current state house boundaries break up 12 of Provo's neighborhoods, sometimes in very strange ways. Poor little Timp neighborhood right there in the center is only 9 blocks total, and yet it's split between 2 different house districts. You've got tiny little jogs that encompass a single block. And as a candidate in 2018, I walked those lines, and there's nothing about one side to the other that suggests it should be in a different house district. These neighborhoods are cohesive communities of interest. And when you look at your communities of interest map, you will see that I have mapped out every single one of these for you guys in your community of interest mapping tool. Now, the communities or the house district that I have submitted splits only 3 of these communities. If we go to the other PDF there, you can see in blue, the northern line appears to not follow them, but that's only an artifact of the census blocks. The census blocks just don't follow the neighborhood boundaries exactly the way that they should, but only 7 houses are affected by that northern blue line. Otherwise, every resident is in the correct neighborhood that they ought to be in. The only other place I have split it is on the Carterville neighborhood with right next to Grandview North and River Grove. I moved the line from State Street over to Columbia Lane. That's just one major street over. And there's just enough apartments in there that it made the numbers work for those districts. I had to do that in order to make the districts work there. Every other neighborhood in Provo is whole. It can be done. Also, as important as this is Provo, where it has to connect with other cities, connects with Orem. There are lots and lots of connections between Provo and Orem, lots of side streets that go between one and the other. You can just drive right across them and barely notice that you've gone from one city to another city. Provo and Orem are almost seamless in the way that they connect. And if you're living in the north part of Provo, I can tell you, you drive due west into Orem to do your shopping. If you're living in the north part of Provo, you're going up to University Parkway and to University Place. On the other hand, our current maps connect Provo and Springville, and Provo and Springville are very, very different. The instant you go from Provo to Springville, you know you've crossed a community. You know that because Springville has this very small town feel, which is something that they've chosen to do in their community. Provo, on the other hand, is very urban, has lots of apartments and more going up all the time. And Provo and Springville being put together, I understand after doing this map why it's so tempting, but it's really not a good idea because those communities do not gel. They are very, very different. And another thing I wanted to point out with my map is using I-15 as a boundary in Provo specifically. In other places, your mileage may vary, but in Provo, I-15 is a giant artificial hill. You can't see it, you see over it, you can't climb it, you can't get across it unless it's through an underpass. Sometimes people might be tempted to use, say, a railroad track as a dividing line, but you can see across the railroad tracks, you can walk across them if you're feeling dangerous, but you really can't do that with I-15. It is a very hard division. It's almost as much as a mountain range in Provo. And so what I've got here is you've got a central Provo district that has all of Provo's grid system, that has the density of Provo, that has the connections with mass transit. It's a very nice compact district, and that's where I live, and it shouldn't be divided. This is an area that has its own very urban feel that is unique in Utah County. On the other hand, you've got the western area of Provo, west of I-15, which is all growing very, very quickly. And you've got a ton of population growth and new building going on. And it's a very, very different feel. And it's a very, very different set of problems than what you have just on the other side of the freeway. And that area should be contained as a community of interest. You've also got an area that has the East Bench of Provo. If you live on the bench, you know that it's different than everywhere else. Even the weather is different up on the bench. Keeping that area together as much as possible is to be desired. I know Provo better than I know most of the other areas in Utah, and I feel like I've done a good map here. The Central Provo district particularly, if you live between I-15 and State Street or 9th East and south of BYU campus, you know you're in that district. Any house district should be that easy to define, a couple of sentences, and people should know if they're in it or not. We've got other districts like that too. If we go to St. George, you'll see that St. George city limits east of I-15 is one district right there. Easy to describe for constituents, easy for people to know if they're in that district or not. I would also like to make sure that I answer any questions that the commissioners have. I've gotten to tell you the most important things, and I've only got 5 minutes today. So I want to make sure that if there's any questions you have that I can answer them.
First of all, thank you, Daniel. Any questions from Commissioner Hilliard?
Let me ask some quick ones. First of all, on your house districts in the Provo area, are they all equal in population?
They are not completely equal in population. And let me tell you something interesting if we'll zoom back into Provo here in a second. The Provo ones are within the numbers, if I recall correctly. Now, I could have actually added the River Grove neighborhood to the central Provo area and made it a little bit closer to an ideal population. But I feel like it's more important to keep the communities of interest together. And one of those communities of interest are super neighborhoods. Provo is actually thinking about putting some of its neighborhoods together and administering them in a collective sense. Does that make sense? And so keeping these groups of neighborhoods together is very important as well. And everything that's north of the Provo River right there are pretty seamless within themselves. And I wanted to keep them together. And I felt that having them together was more important than getting to the ideal number. But I do believe that the Provo areas are within the correct numbers. And something else that's worth bringing up is that because of this, when the census was taken with COVID, a lot of the BYU and UVU students that would normally be counted in Provo and Orem were elsewhere, whether that's in a different state or in a different part of Utah. And so Provo and Orem is slightly undercounted with our current census numbers. So it would be better, if possible, to use some of that plus or minus 5% to let Provo and Orem have some room to grow. Because if we did the census this year instead of last year, it would already be significantly different.
My second question is, Orem have these same communities of interest that Provo has?
To the best of my knowledge, Orem does not have a neighborhood program in the same sense as Provo. I do not believe that it's organized. If there's someone from Orem that knows better than me, please say so. But to the best of my knowledge, they do not have the same program that Provo does.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question was the same. Are you aware of any other city in Utah that has such a system?
I am not personally aware of that. That doesn't mean that there
Does
isn't
Salt Lake,
one I'm
does
ignorant
Salt
of.
Lake have neighborhood maps?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I believe we found one in Weber County too, or there's some in.
Did I answer your question, Commissioner?
Yes, you did. Thank you. We're just trading local information here too.
So like Sandy has communities, I think there's about 10 cities that have what they call community councils. Salt Lake City has that, and several others that have those community councils that we've got.
Any other questions for Daniel?
And speaking of these neighborhoods, I've lived in 5 of them over my 12 years in Provo, and I can tell you they're really good boundaries. Where they look a little funky on the map, that's a hill that's there dividing streets from each other. Like, and each of these neighborhoods has their own distinct character, their own distinct feel when they're in there. They even have signs telling you when you've crossed from one to the next.
Please, Mr. Hale.
Yeah, just a comment. Well, thank you. I really appreciate your presentation, and I think your idea of looking specifically at those neighborhoods really follows our desire to look at communities of interest and to really try to keep those intact. So just out of curiosity, what was the largest deviation you had in those areas in Provo?
I would have to look up the actual numbers. If you want to bring that up, I would be happy to look at it. I had the disadvantage of going first in that I was the first one, I think, to submit a public house map to you guys.
Well, thank you for all your effort.
And Cassidy has those numbers.
Yeah, so Daniel, you took full liberty of the 10% rule, which I commend you. So something to be aware of as you look at your map again is the commission has elected to, let me see. Oh, you know what? Yeah, you go over, which is weird that it let you submit your map. So if you go on our website, it has our acceptable deviation number. So one of your districts is below by over 3,000, which is definitely over the threshold. So it's interesting that it let you submit. But so as you redo your map and you discuss that you're interested in doing that, is I would challenge you to look at that and then see if you can get those deviations in line. I'm also confused why I let you submit, but here we are. Another thing to consider, Daniel, as you're drawing, and I know that you are the Provo expert, but when I'm looking at your city splits overall, some cities that you have split, I think a little bit more, possibly because you're lending so much consideration to Provo, which is totally fine, is Lehigh is split a little bit more than I see normally across plans. It's within 6 districts and Tooele was within 8. So as you redraw your plan and like reapproach the commission, those are a couple of things to consider besides getting your target deviations a little bit more in line with what is allowed. Does that make
Certainly.
sense?
Thank you. Yes, I was under the assumption that if I was allowed to submit that I had gotten the deviations. I apologize that was not the case.
Well,
Well, it should have been.
Like me
It wasn't
too.
your fault.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, did we have any other? Okay.
Came in late. I don't know if I could share mine.
Are you with the house maps?
Yeah, house maps. I think I might be the TD.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah, it looks like mine. I didn't know. Okay.
You want to come up here and you want to talk about it for a second?
Sure. So
Oh,
Yeah.
Daniel,
why don't
thank
we
you very
move
much.
on? And you can make your comments in your presentation.
Well, he's this next house map.
Right.
Yeah.
That's,
So
yeah.
I think we can go ahead and proceed, but yeah, thank you, Daniel, for submitting those. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
And
please.
there's a mic.
Okay, don't use the mic.
Don't use the
Oh,
mic.
don't use
It
the
messes
mic.
with the audio. It gives weird feedback on Zoom.
Don't listen to me.
okay, so I guess I'm just gonna start with Davis County.
You want to introduce yourself
Oh
first?
yeah, I'm Travis DeYoung. I work for Draper City. Have no real experience with like a lot of mapping. I've used like Dave's redistricting mapping in the past. So I know like somewhat how to make these maps work and fit together. So it helped me a little bit. Okay, all right, so just looking at Davis County, that's kind of where I started. So my goal was to keep counties and cities in shape or intact as much as I could. So if you just want to scroll up, and then you get to Ogden City right there. I just kind of move around the major cities, try to keep them intact as much as possible, kind of like I did with Logan there. And then I drew an urban district around Logan. And then I kind of went down to Salt Lake County, and Salt Lake City is kind of challenging. I try to split it up by like neighborhood interest, kind of like with Provo with the previous presenter. So you have like Sugar House there, it's kind of the grade one. And then you have Central City and like Liberty Wells, that's the orange one. And then kind of, if you scroll up a little bit more, sorry.
Sorry, what was that?
Just scroll up a little bit more so we can see Salt Lake City. Then I try to keep like the avenues and Capitol Hill and the Harvard Yale area in one spot, and then kind of like Rose Park, Poplar Grove in one. And then the blue one's kind of weird, but I didn't want to put Magna in with Salt Lake City because it's so far away. So I decided to put the rest of Salt Lake City in with South Salt Lake, and just the way the population sits, I kind of had to draw. So if we just want to scroll down a little bit more with Holiday and Cottonwood Heights, I try to keep all of the rich people in their own district. So the rich people in Cottonwood Heights that kind of sit up on the mountain with Holiday.
What happened to Mill Creek? Is Mill Creek up above in that blue district?
Yeah, it's kind of like the green one, right below the gray districts. If you scroll up a little bit more.
Yeah, above Murray.
There we go. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
And to give Travis credit, he split Mill Creek the least out of the plans we've seen so far, so.
Mill Creek will be very happy if that happens.
Very awkwardly shaped city.
Yeah,
It is.
It is.
Yeah, there are a couple of those.
Yes.
Just a couple.
Yeah, just a couple.
Okay, so if we just scroll down into Utah County, I kind of started, I left that blank. I did kind of the Salt Lake County, then I went down to Provo and tried to make them fit into 3 districts kind of equally, and then moved up towards Salt Lake County and out. And kind of completed the map that way, and then I just kind of went down to the south to St. George and drew their districts, and then just kind of filled in the rest. I find that was the easiest thing to do, so I'm not going back. And
What did you do with San Juan County?
what I do with San Juan, I just kind of threw it in with the corner of the state.
He went west.
Basically what the current map does.
Yep. It's kind of it. You have any questions?
You put Grand County and Uinta County the same?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Many people who live in that part of Uinta.
Question.
What did you prioritize when you were working on your numbers?
Like the number of people between districts.
Right.
I just try to get it as equal as possible. So I
Right.
keep drawing and drawing and drawing until I got close to 0, and then I lock it and move on.
Okay.
But again, it is with all of those who have submitted maps, we're really grateful and appreciate the time that you took, because we understand how much time it takes to
That's
draw,
right.
especially a house map.
And we
Yeah.
hope it'll give us ideas.
Yes, and it will help us look at things through another set of lenses, which is very helpful. Other questions? Yeah. Thank you very much. We appreciate you, one, coming out, and 2, sharing your map and telling us a little bit about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
All right, let's talk about Senate now. Okay, so looking at our Senate, all of them are within your minimum and maximum deviation standard that you've set, so that's really exciting. Again, I think these are pretty consistent with the maps that you guys have all been making. We've seen in the ranges of a few hundred difference to down to 100. If you look at Stewart's, it's a little bit tighter in terms of deviation, but again, well within what you've decided is permissible. If we move on to our next slide, compactness, again, pretty solid. Like all of these are above what was passed last time. So feeling good about that. I always like it when they're pretty close with both type of measurements. We talked about a couple of meetings ago, how they deal with circles in terms of measuring compactness. And again, all of these can be cheated, but as you've noted with some of the other maps you've seen today, they look pretty decent, right? All right, moving on. We have the county splits. I forgot to add my quotes on that. So we have different pieces of counties existing and different, again, these are all like well within the standard. I think they're all pretty well done. And this is about what we're gonna see when we map as well. And then if you move forward again to one more slide, I think we'll have the different counties that we've been seeing split. Yeah, so for Box Elder, that's one that I've seen plans where it's split up and others where it's kept whole. Wayne is another county, and then Juab, San Pete, and Summit. So those are kind of like the 4 counties where one of them is split or 2 of them are split, but in a different plan, they've elected to split in other ways. So those are where we're seeing the buckles of, okay, I have to split a county. So those are the places we're seeing it. Where in the other counties, we're seeing pretty consistent numbers like Davis, we're seeing, 4 to 5 districts existing that have pieces of Davis in it. Utah County 7 to 8, Salt Lake 11 to 12, and that's on par with what you've been drawing as well. So we'll go ahead and review those maps.
Thank you very much. So we wanted to take a quick look at the maps submitted by the folks that are here with us. So Stuart, I believe this is your Senate map.
Here we go. So this is my Senate map. So for this, I focused on the usual things: compactness, keeping communities of interest together. For this one, it does have a bit more in the way of city splits than my house map does, because like you've got my district at the west end of Salt Lake County that goes along Mountain View corridor from Magna all the way to Daybreak. So that I don't really know that there's much to. Are there questions that you have just looking, seeing what's on the screen right now?
Just real quick, could you zoom out a touch, Joey? I'm curious about so we've got the eastern portion is in one Senate district, it looks like, but it sneaks up into Utah County.
Yes.
What's the boundary between Box Elder, Cache, and Rich County going south? Because those 3 counties need to have additional populations given to it.
Yeah, so finally, my laptop was being a little weird.
So Rich and Cache are combined, it looks like.
Yes, that's the case on all my maps, because the road connection through Provo Canyon, or I mean not from Logan Canyon, is more robust, I think, than the other road connections between Rich and other counties.
My question, though, it looks like you've taken Box Elder County, added part of Cache County, and probably Morgan County to it.
No, not Morgan, that's the Huntsville area in Weaver.
Huntsville, okay. So Weber County.
Yeah.
That's a good drive from Cache into there in the summertime. Don't want to do it in the winter or where it's raining.
Yeah, so the split in Cache County is in Nibley. So a small part of Nibley is with the district containing Logan and Rich County and the areas north. And most of it, along with Hiram and Wellsville, obviously, and Paradise, is with Box Elder and that district. It includes the Huntsville area as well as North Ogden and part of Pleasant View.
Any other questions on?
Yeah, can we zoom into the Davis Weber line, Hill Air Force Base and Westwood?
Further in or there?
Hold there for a moment.
Yeah,
So
so
having a District 18 having most of its population on the west side of the green area. And then it expands.
Morgan County.
Yeah,
Morgan
out into
County.
Oregon, as well as the Colville area in Summit. That's more a,
Colville area for a while. It's more like Logan.
Interesting.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, so the 21st district, that's Clearfield, Hill Air Force Base, all of Layton, or not quite all of Layton. Parts of Layton are in the 18th, and then a small part of Kaysville. The 19th is, all of Ogden is in one district, which is, that's something that the current map doesn't do. And that struck me as a bit of a gerrymander in the current map, not keeping Ogden whole. So this map keeps Ogden in one district, and it also pairs it with all of South Ogden and part of Washington Terrace.
That's the boundary between Davis and Salt Lake. Did any of that district in Davis County also go into Salt Lake?
Yes, so the first district, the first district is a combination of the parts of the current first district and parts of the current 23rd district. Could you scroll down to that boundary? So the first district, it has about 45,000 people in Davis County and 68,000 people in Salt Lake County. So that's all of the west side neighborhoods in Salt Lake City. So Rose Park, Fair Park, Poplar Grove, Glendale, Jordan Meadows, West Point, as well as all of Ballpark and part of downtown, I believe, if I recall correctly. The Davis County portion is all of North Salt Lake, all of Woods Cross, and part of Bountiful.
I must admit, I'm quite impressed. You can remember all of the places that you were putting in.
I mean, I've got it on, I've got the Dave's redistricting version of my map pulled up on my laptop in front of me.
So that helps a little. Okay.
Makes it easier.
All right. Other questions about his map or other parts you'd like to see? Okay. Well, thank you again, Stuart. We really appreciate the work that you've taken. And
Can I ask what?
Oh, please.
What about St. George and Cedar City? How do you put those?
Right as I close my laptop.
Oh.
Yeah, so,
I really like your laptop version, by the way. It's much easier to distinguish districts in those colors.
yeah, so St. George is kept whole and along with its hold on, I'll scroll down there. Yeah, so St. George is kept whole along with Santa Clara and Ivins. And that it just barely takes a bite out of the city of Washington so about 800 people from Washington are in the St. George district. And then the rest of Washington County goes up and that district takes in most of Iron County, including all of Cedar City and about 100 people from Enoch. Or no, it's 1,400. There's a weird unincorporated area tripped me up. Yeah, about 1,500 people in Enoch are also in that district.
I remember when we were in Washington the other day, the population of Washington County is 180,000. If you take one Senate district, that leaves 78,000. And then you go up to, so they only have 50,000 out of Iron County. So Cedar City would not be the largest city in that area. Washington County would have more citizens in that district than Cedar City.
Cedar City is 35,000 people and Washington only has 28,000. So Cedar City is the largest city in that district.
What happened to the rest of Washington County?
The rest of Washington County is the St. George district.
Well, I'm just going on the maps that we had in there. It said 180,000 was the population of Washington County.
Washington County, yes.
And so if you take 112 out, that leaves 78,000 left over that's not in the Senate district.
Yeah, so Cedar City is the largest city in the district. However, the Iron County portion is smaller than the Washington County portion.
Well, thank you very much again. We
Yeah,
really
thank you.
appreciate that, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing to notice about this map though, to be concerned about, and this has happened in other maps, is West Jordan is split 4 times in this map, and Salt Lake City, which has, 80-ish thousand more people, is also split 4 times. So that seems kind of like an interesting choice, but I've seen it in other maps with West Jordan. Sometimes it gets possibly oversplit. So keep that in mind as we're looking at this map again.
And one thing with West Jordan is its boundaries are kind of funky at the north end of it.
No, it is. You're not wrong. Yeah, they know. They've been mapping.
I follow roads over city boundaries in parts.
All right. Did we have other Senate maps?
Did you want to present your Senate map?
Yeah.
I don't believe Daniel has a Senate map. Daniel, correct me if that's incorrect.
That I have.
So.
Let's just try to. I'm gonna steal one of your outlets there.
Use can plug it.
Where would you like to start?
Get started in Salt Lake County this time. It's kind of the same thing I did with the house map. Try to keep counties and cities intact as much as I could. So I just kind of did like east, west side, Salt Lake City districts, and the same magnet thing happened again. Instead of putting magnet in with Salt Lake City, which didn't really make sense to me, I put it in with South Salt Lake instead, and just kind of built around that. We can go north. And just up through Davis. And I believe Ogden, it's in its own district with the rest of Weber County. Just kind of build a district around Logan and that urban area.
So that one did stay in cache for you there.
Then we can go to,
Use that part.
And does that go down to a lot
I think
on
so.
the east?
Yeah, I'd have to check.
Does it go into from Summit County? Does it go in? No, it doesn't. Okay, but it does take in Huntsville. What does it take in?
Which district? The purple one? Yeah. It's kind of like the edge of Weber. And then,
You go north on that, Joey?
Go north, take the Cache Valley. Cache Valley is on the north, and on the east is with Rich County, with Morgan County and Summit County. And then what's the place of Manaway? There,
It looks like it's in the 10.
what district is that in?
Yeah, there it is.
Mantua.
had to split that county a little bit because it's just too big.
It was with all of that. That was Morgan and Rich. Yeah.
Yeah.
That goes Morgan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tooele, Fox Shelter on the west goes south into Tooele.
I don't think it does. I'm sorry. It's been a while since I.
Joey, can you show us Tooele?
Yeah, it's in its own little thing. So Tooele kind of goes into Utah.
And then, okay, and then it curves around. What is that?
In Eagle Mountain. The curve into Eagle Mountain.
I think part of it. Yeah, and then the rest is in that kind of purple district.
Saratoga Springs.
I think Saratoga Springs is in that purplish.
It's all in that
Oh, I guess Spanish Fort goes in a blue one.
Oh,
Better be paying better attention here.
At least you're not with it.
so what did you just outline?
Saratoga Springs.
Saratoga Springs. Can you outline,
Eagle Mountain?
Eagle Mountain? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Tricky.
Yeah, so
What's the main city? It must be Payson. What's the main city in the blue that has
the
12?
blue,
Is it Payson?
Yeah, go south, will you, Joey? Yeah, Payson, it looks like,
Probably up into Salem.
just outside of Salem. Payson may be split there. Okay.
It's fun just to do one district and that's the only one you have to worry about. That's really fun. Is
We all like that.
yeah, this one,
Oh, yeah.
that Payson?
Yes.
Yeah, and to
It's in the running for weird boundaries too.
Yes.
To comment on Travis's map, I think you do a really great job at not splitting like really big cities like Salt Lake, West Valley, West Jordan, Provo, Orem, Sandy. You're all looking at like they're across 2 or 3 districts, which I think is really impressive. But you kind of start to see that buckle as you get to the smaller cities. So for example, that district that split Perry, my family lives in Perry, and that would be an interesting choice, right? You're like, oh, I drive down 89 and suddenly I'm not in my district anymore. So I think you did a really good job with the bigger cities, but I think as we've seen, some of the smaller cities could use some areas of improvement.
you can improve it.
Well, and we really do appreciate that you submitting it, because there's something very helpful about seeing alternative visions of how we can group things.
Just put up my map and hear all the criticism I give.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we'll get to that line.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to focus again on Utah County.
Yeah, let's look at Utah County just for a minute. That would be,
Like try
yeah,
to,
what did you do with Provo?
I think I started kind of with the south, kind of with like I did with the house map and just kind of moved up from
Okay.
there. Yeah,
So captured pretty much.
Yeah, so
Most of
Provo's
Provo,
pretty
yeah.
intact, which is hard to do. Okay.
let's go up a little bit more, kind of see that. And then that purple district, I just kind of had to combine with Salt Lake County and Utah County. Yep, and that's pretty much it. It's much easier to draw than.
Goes from the southwest of Joab to,
Yeah, Joab to Blanding.
try driving that without going over a river.
Yeah, but San Juan is not with Grand.
Yeah.
All right, any
Thank you
other
so
questions?
much. Appreciate your work.
Yes, thank you.
So, yeah, again, thank you, Travis. We really appreciate it. Were there any other maps that?
I don't believe any more Senate
Okay,
maps.
terrific.
School board or congressional?
We're on school board next. We don't have as many submissions for school board. I think we have 2. Yes. So both are within our deviations. And similarly, these deviations are within what you're mapping as well. I tend to see a little bit more liberal within your like 10% deviation, right, on school boards. And I think that's probably appropriate considering the way that districts are drawn. And I don't want to say you can get away with it, but people just aren't as interested in school board, which is unfortunate because it's important. So
They're very big.
they're very big, right? There's
200.
15 of them, right? So you're totally fine. You're within the deviations, and so are the plans that everyone has submitted. If you move on to our next slide, again, we're seeing a little bit of our compactness go down, but again, there's 15 districts. This is still within the appropriate amount that we've seen with plans passed before. So we're looking good there in terms of public submitted maps. And if you move on to our counties split, far fewer number, because again, the districts are so big. So we're seeing about 20 pieces of different counties to like 23 pieces all across different districts. And then if you move on to which counties these are, Davis, Emory and Iron were the ones that, and Wasatch were the ones that like were kind of switched as to which ones were and were not split. In Salt Lake, you're seeing about 7 to 8 districts, Utah 4 to 7, which is a little bit wider than I would expect. But again, each person will talk about why they're doing that. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of the overall trend. And I think Stuart is the only one here to present his school board map.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, so my main goal with this was avoiding excessive splits of the individual school districts throughout the state. So my first district, it has zero, it's my largest district, but it has zero, there's 0 school districts that it only takes part of. So it is composed wholly of entire school districts. So that's Box Elder, Logan and Cache school districts, Rich, Morgan, and North Summit and, is it North Summit and South Summit that are the, yeah.
Park City's the third one up there.
Park City is in a district with Wasatch County and most of Canyon School District. So none of my other districts are quite at that level. There's an alternative way I came up with doing Southern Utah after speaking to one of the state legislators who I believe is from Central Utah last week at the Rose Park Legislative Redistricting meeting. So that that would be sending, instead of Washington County going north, it would be going east to take in San Juan and Kane, Garfield, as well as Grand, and also Paiute, just because of population equality. This version, I submitted that one as an alternative. I don't endorse that one over this one. That's just 2 different valid ways of doing it. Are there any questions just looking at this? Oh, one more thing. I don't have a district containing parts of both Canyons and Jordan school districts, because as someone who's lived in the south end of Salt Lake County for almost my entire life, I've seen how the enmity between people in those 2 districts can be, that I don't think that they want to be together.
Now, wait a minute. I understand that Salt Lake County is united and all have a common interest, and they should all be together in the same district. So they're all listed alike. I'm interested in Utah County. How have you divided Utah County? Because you got 2 big school districts with Nebo
And Provo in the middle.
Alpine and Provo in the middle.
Yeah, so my 9th district contains the cities of Riverton and Bluffdale along in Salt Lake County. It also has Eagle Mountain area, Saratoga Springs, and Lehigh, and that's it. It doesn't have any, well, it has 1 city, or technically 2 city splits, because it has a tiny part of Harriman, the eastern tip of Harriman that just stretches way out there to grab whatever that roadway is. And then Riverton has the weird jutting bit at its western end that's mostly in the 11th.
You basically split Alpine with the west and the east. What'd you do with Provo? Did you put that in the?
So most of Orem, along with all of Provo and part of Springville, is a district. And then in this version of the map, the rest of Utah County, the south part of it, is with Juab and Tooele. I've got, in my alternative version, it goes with Duchesne and Uinta and Carbon instead.
So the Nebo district is all one, Nebo School District, South
No,
Utah
it's-
County.
Springville is
No,
in
because
Nebo.
Springville City is split. So it's almost all in one, not quite.
Any other questions on the school board? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Had a
you.
really big one, I think.
Oh, yeah, that, the southeastern
Oh, yeah. District
corner
14.
is
The one that
humongous.
Mark Huntsman represents now. He lives in Fillmore. He has 15 counties, I think.
Yeah. That's, yeah, that, again, the geography is really challenging.
I should have, is that the way it's colored on, that's the way it's colored?
Yeah, let me change it for you.
Yeah, I should have changed I'm drawing all making adjustments to these maps in DRA and then exporting them and then importing them back into the software each time I'm updating them. So that randomizes the coloration every single time. So I should probably start doing more checking of how that randomized coloration ends up before I press the submit button. Because those two districts, the Park City, Canyon, Wasatch, and the Nebo, Tooele, Juab had almost identical coloration. That would have been confusing to look at.
Don't worry, it's a common problem. I face it every day.
You'd think there would be an algorithm to just assign each feature a coloration.
It's clear enough that Esri does not have that algorithm.
Well, it really depends on what order you're drawing the districts, right? So you're like, this is District 1 and this is District 10, but they come close to each other, but the software thinks, oh, this is 10 shapes away. It's gonna be fine to be the same color.
For these, I drew them from scratch without looking at the existing map. And then afterwards, I renumbered them based on which of the current district they were most similar to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you so much.
And well,
Sorry, Commissioner Facer, we did have one person join late that had they have a Senate map and a school board map as well. So if it's okay with the commission, if we could loop back to their Senate map really quick.
I think that'd be
should
fine.
we do school board first
We
since we're
want to
already
give it school
here?
board first
Let's do
and then
school
do the
board.
Senate.
First, while we're in the school board mode.
Okay. Kevin Jones, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay, let me get your map pulled up.
Yeah, I can go ahead and sort of describe both my school districts and Senate maps were built upon the 2010, 2022 district maps. I just sort of readjusted things along where population had shifted, which probably is why they're a bit more compact, but I am not as well informed on any of the communities of interest or districting, so I'm sure there are plenty of city and group overlap that isn't exactly accurate, but it's more compact in exchange.
This one really relies on those prior districts is the starting.
Mhm.
Split Cedar City.
Yeah, looks like.
Other parts of the school board map that you all would like to see?
I'd just be interested in Utah County again, how you handle that with the North Alpine and the South Nebo and Provo, the 3 school districts.
So part of it's with District 9, it looks like. Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs part.
And then Provo goes up the canyon up into
Up in
East.
Zebra, yeah.
Yeah. Which is contiguous. You got Provo Canyon there. Did you, sorry,
Oh, sorry. How far does District 9 go up then on the west? Okay.
So District 9 is Tooele, and then that, oh, there's a little piece of up in the north part of Salt Lake County.
oh, yeah.
Can you zoom into Davis? Look at where it's split there in. Up through Layton.
Did you have particular priorities that you were following as you designed these, or were you mostly looking at numbers?
Mostly looking at numbers. It was pretty much a race to see how fast I could make my own map. And that's one of the reasons I didn't even bother doing a Utah House Senate or Utah House map, because
Because it
just
has
a bit of-
75.
Yes.
yeah, more work to do.
All right, shall we move to the Senate map?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Now we have Kevin's Senate map. And on this one, Kevin, did you start as you did with the school districts with the existing Senate boundaries, or how did you start this process?
The exact same way, starting with existing, adjusting by population from there.
Are there specific areas that the commission, please, Commissioner Baker?
Did you have a way of identifying where the population had increased or decreased? Going from 2010 to this 2020 version?
No, I just first I loaded the existing one and then just tried to see which ones definitely needed to lose population, which definitely needed to gain it, sort of going around the state inwards to the population center.
Okay, thanks.
If I just go to Cache and Box Elder, it looks like you do not go to Tooele with Box Elder, but with Cache, you go into Huntsville and to Morgan and put that in with Cache, you split Logan.
Looks like it. Now, what side of the railroad tracks are you on?
I'm always working. No, I'm on the east side. But those two on the west, is that Huntsville and Morgan?
Yeah, that's Morgan.
Part of Morgan. Probably divides the highway.
Yeah.
Oh, it
So
does. You're right.
Taggart will be in
Yeah.
the district, but not Milton.
Okay, other things that y'all would like to look at? And Kevin, again, we'd like to thank you for taking the time, and if you do find some extra time, we'd love to see a house map as well, but we do understand that this is a significant undertaking.
I think Stewart has the best house map that may be possible in this entire earth.
Thank you.
All right,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Last but not least, congressional. So we had 14 congressional maps submitted. Some of them don't meet our requirement for population. Again, we'll have to look to see why those maps are being allowed to be submitted. Although we did get an email from Esri that they're doing an update as well. So we'll see how that goes. So in terms of how many people we're seeing congressional districts that have as many as thousands away in terms of deviation. And then we have those smaller deviations that we see a little bit more with our commission and what the legislature is doing in terms of like a few people deviations away. So this is kind of the spread of numbers that we're seeing. I thought this was the best way to look at the district spread since there's only, 4 districts. And then in terms of compactness, again, we're seeing actually really decent scores. There was only one map that didn't get higher than the last district map, and that was on that Polsby Popper ranking underneath the M map. All the other maps have been at or above what was, in terms of compactness, average score for the last time that we had these maps. So I would say the public submitted maps are also very much on the course of following rules of compactness, which we love to see. And then moving on in terms of county splits, again, we're seeing some of those, like, I don't want to call them like rogue county splits, but again, you're either splitting somewhere in Box Elder or you're splitting in a different county, right? Obviously, Salt Lake and Utah are our most popular like splits because they have the most populations. And as we look through these maps, and it might be helpful, Joey, if we go through kind of like all the maps and give them a brief glance because they do look so different, that we can do that. But first, let's maybe have those who are present talk about their congressional maps.
So we have Stuart submitted, if I saw 3 maps.
Yes, I submitted 2 more this morning. However, I consider them strictly worse than the ones that I already submitted. The only reason the state, I've been listening to what state legislative leaders are saying, and they really cling to this idea that all of the each district should have an urban and a rural component to it. And I think that's a terrible idea. However, I made 2 more maps this morning that comply with that idea.
So did you want your competitive, your?
Let's do competitive.
Joey, do you want to
then
just
the
pull?
rural, then the, or no, compact, then the rural, then the competitive.
Yeah, I think these will be faster to go through. Just a minute here.
Okay.
So yeah, our congressional map app for the public to use is quite overwhelming. We've got lots of maps. They're at the bottom, Joey. There we go.
I don't remember which one is which. I think that's 312, I think.
Yeah, that's how they are loaded.
So you want to start with 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this is my compact map. So it follows communities of interest, I think the best of any of my maps. So it has this Northern Utah district, which you could have a district which is just Box Elder, Cache, Weber, and Davis County with no county splits. However, I think it's better to add Morgan and Rich County and then remove most of North Salt Lake from the district, because Rich and Morgan are, of course, a lot more tied to Northern Utah than they are to anywhere else in the state. So most of North Salt Lake is in the 2nd district, which also includes all of Summit County, and then all of Salt Lake City, Magna, West Valley City, Kearns, Taylorsville, South Salt Lake, Mill Creek, Holiday, Murray, Midvale, Cottonwood Heights, and it splits. It has part of Sandy. Majority of Sandy is in the 4th district, which also contains Tooele, West Jordan, South Jordan, Riverton. So all the south end of Salt Lake County, as well as the north end of Utah County. So Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs, Lehigh, Alpine, Highland, Pleasant Grove, Linden, Vineyard, and part of Orem. And then the 3rd district contains the rest of the state. Any questions?
So for this map, the counties that are split are Davis, Salt Lake, and Utah, which is pretty popular. And in terms of cities,
The 3 largest.
yeah. West Jordan, Orem, Sandy, Pleasant Grove, North Salt Lake, and Park City have splits with it.
West Jordan doesn't show up as being split on my map.
Interesting.
So
I'll take a double check on it.
there might be some like rogue census block or something that just barely crosses.
Yeah, it could be a 0 block.
And how did Park City get split?
Park City is split because part of Park City is in Wasatch County.
Okay,
That tiny
That's
part
right.
of it, like
that's right, yeah.
24 people or something. I think it's actually less than that.
So that's all you took?
So I followed counties instead of city lines in that case.
So let's go ahead and see the next
Or one.
Oh, you want to do one now?
One.
one.
Sorry.
312.
312, that's right.
So this map, it's the idea of keeping areas that are similar in character, but not economically connected necessarily together. So it's got all of rural Utah in one district. It's called the Rural Maximizing Plan because it maximizes rural Utah's representation in a single district. So there, all of rural Utah is in the first district. The second district, it contains Ogden, Riverdale, Washington Terrace, South Ogden, and part of Roy in Weber County. Then it also contains Uinta. It also contains all of Davis County. And then in Salt Lake County, it has Salt Lake City, South Salt Lake, most of Mill Creek, Immigration Canyon, and then it has the Park City area in Summit County. The fourth district contains all of Tooele. It also contains Magna, West Valley City, Kearns, Taylorsville, West Jordan, South Jordan, Murray, the rest of Mill Creek, Holiday, Collinwood Heights, all of Sandy and its various enclaved areas, and a small part of Draper. And then the third district is all of Utah County.
Can I ask you a question? Why would you do that and have the mountain between Tooele and Salt Lake County? Why don't you go around the north end of the lake in the Magna or the south end of the lake mountain?
It is road contiguous. It follows, I believe that's I-80. It's just hard to see on the map because of the way the lines in that area work. But it is road contiguous. So it contains the Garfield area is in the fourth district. The third district is all of Utah County, plus all of Harriman, all of Riverton, all of Bluffdale, and most of Draper.
So Springville, Spanish Fork, all of those are,
In that district.
in this district,
Where's St. George?
In the third district.
in the third
St.
district.
George is in the rural district.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Rouse Creek,
Grouse Creek is in the rural district.
Razor.
now you're just,
It's not a logistically,
Dale.
I can't say that it would be a logistically easy district for anyone who wanted to run in it.
All right, and now on to map 2.
Yeah, so this is my competitive plan. So out of my 5 plans that I've submitted, I like this one the best. So it has a pretty similar setup with the second district as the other map. So Ogden, Washington Terrace, Riverdale, South Ogden, Uinta, all of Davis County, all of Salt Lake City, South Salt Lake, all of Mill Creek, part of Holiday, Immigration Canyon. It also has the Alta and Brighton areas, as well as the Park City area in Summit County. The first district, it has all of the highly educated conservative areas in the state. So Box Elder County, Cache County, Morgan, Summit County, Washington County, and the immediate Provo area. So it has Provo, Orem, Vineyard, Linden, Pleasant Grove, Spanish Fork, Cedar Hills, Springville, Mapleton, American Fork, Palmyra, Lakeshore, and Salem. And Elk Ridge, Woodland Hills. The fourth district, it's entirely based in Salt Lake County. So it's Magna, West Valley City, Kearns, Taylorsville, Murray, most of Holiday, Cottonwood Heights, Midvale, West Jordan, South Jordan, Sandy, all of Draper, excluding the Utah County portion of it, and most of Harriman. And then the third district, it's everything else. So Riverton, Bluffdale, the small part of Harriman that's not in the fourth, the rest of Utah County, so Lehigh, Highland, Alpine, Eagle Mountain, and Santaquin, Payson, and Genoa, and then Genoa, however it is, and then Chewilla, Juab, Millard, Uinta, Duchesne, Washington, Iron, etc.
Very interesting.
Could we get a full zoom out of everything to show the whole map? Any questions?
You described it as your most competitive. What did you mean by that?
So it has two districts that are highly, how they will, what sort of candidates they'll elect. It depends on highly on who runs, how well fit they are, how well suited they are to the region. So it basically is the, it gives voters the most say, swing voters the most say compared to any of the maps.
That's interesting. Thank you. That's very creative.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Stuart, I found your one block that's missing out of West Jordan.
Oh.
There's 39 people in it.
No.
It's okay. It might be that whatever program you were using hasn't updated their like city boundaries yet. But I wanted to make sure that I was like.
That did happen to a few of our maps that we did early
It
on.
did, yeah. It's really easy. Those boundaries could get taken
Interesting.
really quick. I can show you after. We can talk about it later.
All right. Joy, did we have any other maps?
I did too. I made a mistake on the first one.
So would you prefer we just look at
Just the
second map? Okay.
Yeah, they're almost identical. Okay, so it's pretty simple. So 80% of the population lives on the Wasatch Front. So that's where the 3 urban districts I created are. So I created one district centered around Salt Lake City, and like that's northern Salt Lake County. It's the red one, obviously. And I did another district kind of centered around Provo. I didn't want to like throw Provo out into like a rural district since it's like a major city in Utah County. So I kind of put it in with northern Utah County and the southern Salt Lake County. And then with the green district, that's kind of centered around Ogden and the urban area up there. And then the rest of the state is just its own rural district. Pretty simple.
What's the deviation on population?
Is it?
I got it. District 1 is 47, District 2 is -28, District 3 is -4, and District 4 is -15.
Impressive.
They equal to 40, they equal the amount. I mean, I just add the negatives and the positives because they need to come out.
Oh,
Yeah.
Look, I'll double check on the program. I might have copied it over wrong.
Other questions? I think one of the things I really appreciate is the very different approaches of the different maps take.
Goss Creek.
And it'll be interesting to get feedback, not only on the maps we've been drawing, but also on the maps that the public is submitting.
exactly. Yeah.
So I look forward to that.
Just to comment, this will be what the legislature does when you give maps. So think about what you want, because that needs to go in our report so they can hear clearly about
Exactly.
the context of our 12 maps. So this is a good experience to be in their shoes.
Thank you. All right, good job.
Is there
Thank
any
you,
way
Kevin.
that we could get email notifications when people comment on our maps?
That's
I
something
like
we
that
can look
everyone looked
into.
at me.
I don't know if it's a possibility, but I will look into that. Thank you.
You just posted on our webpage?
Yeah, so people are allowed to comment on the public submissions as well, because I think it creates a little bit more dialogue.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
You see it that way, I think.
Delete my first entry.
Yes.
Yes, we can do that for you.
you.
I can do that for you, yeah.
Thank you, Travis.
Okay, and then I believe, Kevin, do you have a congressional map as well?
Yes. And yeah, this features the United Northern Counties with no split, I believe. And then just a solid metropolitan Salt Lake City district, rural Southeast, yeah. Then Utah County with the Northwest or Western.
Is all of Davis County in the Salt Lake or in number one, the east one, north one? Excuse me.
Yes. That's probably part of why my population, there's like 800s of people off.
Go down south.
Go south.
He said he couldn't do North Salt Lake, but he did that.
Yeah, it was in the Davis County. Want to go further south?
Yeah.
Could we back off and see the whole map again for a moment?
There we go.
Okay, yeah, that's. It's very compact.
Yeah, that one district is.
Almost a circle.
Mhm.
Any questions from Mr. Jones?
Do you have any more to say about your choices, of why you made your choices?
Yeah, I would say with Draper sort of being on the edge of Salt Lake County, and Utah County, I mean, it's definitely an option to sort of give that into the Utah County area, but then of course the Southeast has to start eating into Utah County or go all the way to the Wyoming border to have enough population.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate sharing this map with us and sharing your thoughts about it. Do we have any others?
I believe Daniel has one congressional map,
Yes.
and then that is it. Daniel, can you hear us okay?
Okay, am I good to go?
Yep.
All right, my wife got called into work emergency, so I'm trying to dad and present at the same time. I hope this goes well.
It always does.
We can zoom in there on the northern Wasatch Front. My map is very simple. It's the northern Wasatch Front, the central Salt Lake Valley, the southern Wasatch Front, and rural Utah. I have these things within the deviation. In fact, the southern Wasatch Front has a 0 deviation, and I can do all this by splitting only 3 cities in the entire state. So starting from the north, in the northern Wasatch Front, the only city that is split on the north side is Plain City, Utah, and it's split between a developed eastern half and a rural western half. The rural western half is with the rest of rural Utah. The developed eastern half is with the rest of developed northern Wasatch Front.
What's the south boundary?
If we'll go down, I will show you. The southern boundary is for the most part Salt Lake City boundaries. The one exception to that is I take a chunk of South Salt Lake. This is the second city that's divided. It's South Salt Lake that is east of I-15 and north of 2700 South. Very simple division. If you're somebody living in South Salt Lake, you'll know very easily which district you're in. The rest of that funkiness is actually Salt Lake City limits. Oh, baby, you're okay. You're okay, little baby. if we continue on south there, you'll see that we've got the city limits on the east side forming that edge. And then here, the only city that is split is Riverton. We can zoom in and see where. If you're in Riverton and you are north of 118th South, if you are east of Redwood Road, and if you are north and also north of 126th South, you're in the Central Salt Lake Valley District. If you're south and west of those same roads, which are very big major roads, then you're in the Southern Wasatch Front District. Other than those portions of Riverton, this district includes the entire cities of Harriman, Bluffdale, and Draper, and Utah County, with the exceptions of the very rural towns of Alberta and Goshen, which are included with rural Utah. This is a district I'm very proud of because it's got exactly the right number of people. And then rural Utah, of course, is everywhere else. And I want to speak about that for a minute because although it's very expansive geographically, rural Utah shares so many things. One thing the census brought up is that a lot of rural Utah is losing population. A lot of the Wasatch Front is gaining it. I don't know how one rep can represent accurately both of those interests because they're direct opposites. And rural Utah, really, when you think about it, with all the things that rural Utah shares, rural Utah itself is a community of interest. It's possibly our biggest community of interest in our state. And it's one that really shouldn't be divided. And I've gotten some pushback on this map from a particular gentleman who lives in rural Utah who likes that he's got that rural Utah as a whole has the ear of all four of Utah's congressional reps. But that's a dangerous game to play. Right now, our current CD3, if you get enough votes in Utah County, you don't need a single vote from anywhere else in that district to win that election. And if we continue to have rural and urban areas put together, rural Utah runs the risk that one day in 10 or 20 years, you might go from having 4 reps who are listening to your concerns to no reps that are listening to your concerns. And that's not fair to rural Utah any more than splitting up Salt Lake City is fair to urban Utah. This way, rural Utah always has a voice, and it's going to be a voice that is representative of them, that is fair according to the population of this state. And really, what we're trying to do here is have representatives that are representative of Utah. The fact that the numbers in this map work proves that 75% of Utahns live along the Wasatch Front. 75% of our reps should come from that same place too. This is the best map that I've seen. It only splits 3 cities in the entire thing. And I think that we should use something like this. And it's, I think, very interesting to note that several other maps that have been submitted, including ones that have been presented tonight, are variations on this theme. The boundaries are drawn a little bit differently, but the principles of fair representation of Northern Wasatch Front, Southern Wasatch Front, Central Salt Lake Valley, and rural Utah, those principles are common across a lot of the maps that have been submitted to this commission. And I think that's what the people of Utah really want, because we know it's fair, we know it's representative of us, and that's what our representative should be, representative.
Thank you very much, Daniel. The questions, please.
Can we zoom in to the boundary between the northern and central, where it goes through the Salt Lake Valley? That's good, thanks. We followed the Salt Lake boundary and moving westward. Can you pan to the west, Joey?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Joey. Okay.
This boundary here is literally Salt Lake City to Magna. It's the city limits.
And you mentioned one split up in Plain City, I think. What were the other splits, city splits?
Plain City, Utah is split, South Salt Lake is split, and Riverton is split. That's it.
Okay.
Daniel, you have one more split in Santa Quinn. However,
if that is split, is unintentional. I put the whole, I added that as a block in. So that was not meant to happen.
Got split because there's a block that has 15 people that goes into Juab, That's not in Utah County.
Oh.
Okay, that
So-
is,
So
that's
it's a
what that is
trade-off.
then.
It's not a big deal. I just was letting you know.
Right.
Oh, well, okay, there it is then.
I'm not gonna tell you whether it's right or wrong because you're facing like splitting a city versus a county. It's 15 people. I just was letting you know.
Thanks. If I was gonna tweak something, I guess I'd tweak that. I'd put those 15 people back in. It would be 15 people over, but.
Then you'd have another county split.
Any other questions? I'm happy to answer anything.
Sounds like we're good. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
I know,
Thank
no.
you.
Elected official. You did good job, Bill. Good tasking.
Thank you very much.
I don't think it's Wolf.
All right, so I think we're good then on all of the map presentations. So again, thank you to all that have taken the time to share those maps with us. Gordon, you wanted to talk to us about adding maps to the website?
Yeah, so what we'd like to do is, I believe we should start planning regular meetings over the next 4 or 5 weeks. And these meetings will be, the first one in October will be to reduce us down to 12 maps. And then to talk about any modifications, so we're ready for the November 1st submittal. Rob Bishop has a class on every Tuesday and Thursday. So I'm thinking that we're going to schedule these meetings another night. And so I just kind of wanted to pick a night that would be good for all of you.
Gordon, if the meetings are like tonight, keep them on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Rob, I want to
He doesn't have to be.
yeah, well, Rob, I need you, man. All right, anyway, I appreciate the last comment, but I'm also looking for more. So is there?
Well, we only, that leaves Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yes.
I'm pretty neutral on any of
I
those
think
days.
Monday to Fridays are both hard. I think.
Yeah,
Wednesday,
Wednesday's
Thursday,
probably
Wednesday
the
be better?
default.
Okay. Wednesday work for 6. Okay.
Wednesday, I move, we set it for Wednesday.
Okay, we'll be doing that Wednesday. And so what I anticipate is between now and October 1st is to continue mapping. And then let's get together and pare down the maps and start presenting those. We'll work out a format for that. And then we'll start the refinement process.
All right. Is there any other items for discussion that the commissioners would like to raise?
I just want a second timeline issue. It's a growing concern with me. Because I can see how much cleanup we're gonna have. And I don't want us to paint ourselves into a corner up against our final deadline. My thought is that we really start looking at finalizing our draft maps and moving into a kind of a cleanup phase, probably the next week or two at the most.
You want to do that before October 1st, or are you thinking October 1st is the right timeline?
About October 1st.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Our very first meeting in October, we'll schedule a meeting. Let me look at the calendar, make sure.
And we'll give you some guidance on thinking about how to structure your set of maps that you want to discuss, because it may well be that as you look at the maps that you've done, that you may go, gosh, I really don't care much for that map after having done. And so I'm going to focus on these 2 maps and I'll present those to the commission and something of that nature.
I really think that we're gonna find that the refinements that we do will be just as difficult as the drafts.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So we really got to give ourselves time to get through the refinements and then into mid-October, a final stage of cleanup and data prep.
So to Jeff's comment, I think he's right. The 29th is Mexican water. That's Wednesday night. The next Wednesday is the 6th of October. And so it'd really be great if we were thinking about 3 maps. And so maybe the issues are each of the 3 groups start finalizing 1 map to bring back to present to the rest of the commission. of why they think those, or you could bring back 2 maps or whatever, but let's start thinking about the maps that we talk about to bring back to refine. That's my thought for the 6th.
I mentioned refinements, that's just a line work. We also have to do documentation.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be a huge chunk of time too. 6th of October kind of makes me nervous.
It does, but I just,
So
it does.
And it may well be that, that we may have some of this discussion at the Mexican Water, public meeting as part of that, conversation.
Drive down and back.
Yeah.
Friday nights are gone because we are going out of town generally and doing stuff.
Yeah.
And so, if, I'll talk to Rex and we may try to do an interim meeting where we're trying to refine, to get to that, because I do think you're right, we are at crunch time. And once we get to those 12 maps, it'll be easier for us to start documenting, because we want to hit those 12 maps really hard on those districts. Even as they get refined, the comments of why you did it will probably stay fairly consistent through the process. So we can start.
One of those Wednesdays will be in Moab.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'm reconsidering. I agree with Lyle that Mondays are hard, but it's striking me that too many of our Wednesdays are gone.
Yeah.
And that it's down to, and our Fridays are gone. That leaves only Mondays. So I'm inclined to think we may need to do, and it's not going on forever. It's just going on for a month.
seems like
a month or two. It just seems like it. That's right.
As long as you promise to bring treats, we'll be okay.
Oh, okay. That's a good.
We'll rotate that assignment for Monday evening. So.
Just have one concern, if we're talking about making hard maps the next month or two, we shall have hearings coming up after those.
I know,
What's
but-
the point of those hearings?
Well, I
If
mean,
it's
the
not,
refinements of those. So hopefully that you're going to keep refining, like Jeff said, clear till October end. And so I'm thinking that,
I'm hoping that at least the 28th we stop.
so it'll be more refinement than picking whole maps. So, we got.
And that's been built into the process from the beginning, that we've had to do mapping work before we have time to complete the hearing meetings.
Let me raise this question. I really appreciated getting better acquainted with Commissioner Thorne, and I think he's really been a diligent worker. We've done really quite a few. Do we continue to do them, or should now's the time to say stop? We've done 7 or 8 congressional, we've done 2 or 3 Senate, 2 or 3 House, school districts. We should now concentrate on 1 or 2 of each of those and get them done, or should we continue to keep drafting them like we're doing?
I would think that you might want to start reviewing the maps that you've done and start, one, looking for patterns and say, are there 2 or 3 that you want to kind of focus on so that you may leave some to the wayside. Now, those of us who might not have been quite as productive as you and Commissioner Thorne, we might still need to be drafting a little bit more.
that house map we're doing, we could finish up tomorrow.
Yeah. So, Commissioner Hill?
And I do think, maybe to hone in on a few of those maps, but really, I think for these, all of our public meetings to really be effective and to be purposeful, we need to take that information and come back and use that information to inform our revisions and inform our refinement. So, even up until the 23rd, I would love to hear what people in West Valley have to say. And so I want to take that information on the 23rd of October and see if there is any place where I can take that information that we received from residents there to tweak the maps that we're going to be giving, because I just don't want any residents to think that it's after the fact, that we've made our decision, that we've, selected our maps. And so whatever they have to say isn't going to make any difference.
Yeah, I agree completely.
And maybe one way to phrase that for them is that here are the maps that are our finalists. Tell us where we need to make adjustments to fit your concerns.
Yeah.
So it's much more specific than we've asked people to do at the beginning. But here's where it is. Here's a blow up of your community. Here's where the different maps draw the lines. Tell us which ones make sense for you.
Thank you.
I just add this too. We work together on our maps. I'd be interested in knowing the maps the other committees have done. Maybe if we sat down, and just kind of talk generally about it, we say, oh my, that was a problem couldn't really solve. You solved it. We like the way you solved it. It's really our maps.
Well, isn't that what we'll be doing with our finalists, our discussion?
Yes.
With the, yeah, good, because I'm looking forward to that too.
So I'm thinking maybe the 27th is a Monday. And that's maybe the day that we start a real discussion of the maps that are on the website. So let's have each of you be ready to talk about the ones you're most familiar with and get reviewed and see what, and then let's have that discussion. Should be the one I think we do.
Thank you. And finally, do we have any other public comment?
I believe we have Richard who wanted to add something really quick. Richard, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
This is Richard with La Raza.
Oh, okay, terrific.
So
Raza.
I understand the time compression that you guys are under. Nobody envies the work that you guys are doing. UCLR is producing a map that we are about ready to submit. And kind of the concern is what I'm hearing here is as that timetable shrinks for you all, can you give an approximation about like at what deadline are these community maps not going to be taken into consideration?
Well, I think what we've said is we'll take public comment up through the 23rd. And so, of October. And I think that would include maps. Now, ideally, if the sooner we have it, the longer we can germinate on it. But up through the 23rd of October, we're committed to accepting public comment and engagement.
That's what I hear our commissioner chair saying is that there's a law of diminishing returns. The longer you take, the less impact it's going to have. It may still have some impact, but the quicker you can get it in, the more impact it's likely to have. Well, without a hard deadline.
Richard, one of the things too, I heard Lyle say earlier today in the meeting, and I think this applies to you, is that if we had somebody that represents a group, that's going to carry some weight. And so if he suggested if we had a mayor or somebody that represents a significant community such as your community, that is probably going to be something that I think the commission is going to want to have you and your group come and present and show us what you're thinking. I think that is important. So that's what I heard from the commission as well. So I'm glad that you work on the map. We'll give you as much time as we can, but as soon as you get it done, let us know and we'll have you in the next meeting to show the commission what you're thinking for your communities.
And just to be clear, our state map should be submitted by the end of the week. It's our other maps that may be the beginning of next week, but so I'm not thinking, into October terribly. I'm just wanting to make sure that as you guys move the process forward, that some of these maps that are coming after today are still getting due consideration.
Yes.
Yeah, so once you're
I see
live.
lots of heads nodding if you can't quite tell on the very little picture you're seeing.
So again, if you want to submit that and you can work with our staff and we can help get it all set up and even get it out maybe before the meeting for review. So we'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Any other public comments? Not hearing any. We have a motion to adjourn.
I have one other comment.
Please.
Judge Thorne and I have been quite concerned to make sure we protect minorities. You're talking about a majority minority district. And I think we've looked at it and tried to figure it out. We've talked to legal counsel and he indicated that he did not think we need to worry about it. I know I heard the legislative committee say because of how the voting has been that we probably don't need to worry about it. But I think Matt indicated that he was going to check with the attorney out of Stanford and come back, because if it's an issue, we need to address it, make sure and if it isn't going to be an issue, then I think we need to know that as well. So the quicker we know that, the better, because I know we're concerned about it.
And I think we tried to construct minority majority districts. The closest we could get was about 44%.
And that apparently was in a district where the minorities have elected their representatives. That's, as I got the word from legislative staff at the legislative redistricting meeting.
So we give you that charge, Matt, to follow up on that. Any other final comments?
When you're talking about minority districts, are you talking about state house or state senate or congressional or?
Small district, it was house districts because there were such large numbers that would be required.
And you're not talking about total
Voting age population.
voting age population of a particular racial or ethnic group, or just that aren't non-Hispanic white?
I believe just non-Hispanic white.
I'm going to let legal counsel answer that question. I just know it's an issue, and we looked at the minority figures that we were given on the census report.
Yeah.
That Judge Thorne and I looked at.
Because I know it's possible, extremely difficult to create a district that's majority Hispanic. However, it's pretty trivial to create districts that are majority are
Non-white,
non-white.
right, yeah, because you.
We'll look at it.
Minorities, in the sense that, you know, I think aren't males minorities in the state of Utah now? I mean,
If they're not, they shouldn't
it's
be.
just not meaningful. Because it may be everything from Pacific Islanders to refugees who now have citizenship from Africa. I mean, it's just gonna, yeah, those are not gonna work. So yeah, that's an interesting problem.
But again, we want to be aware
Of what
and avoid packing or cracking.
Right.
And so we would appreciate some additional legal guidance.
A safe harbor, so that he tells us it's not something that you need to worry about in Utah that we don't have to worry about.
Excellent. I've spoken with Professor Persley on that, and he's been looking at certain numbers, and so I'll follow up with him on that. From what prior conversations we've had, finding we haven't come across any minority majority situation that would need to be addressed or accounted for.
If I understand it correctly, when you do the census, you self-report.
Yes.
In other words, I could say that I'm Asian American, and they don't ever check it out. That's what they. And so that's what we were using on the.
Yeah. And one of the things, Matt, I think that would be helpful is, I understand we won't get a majority minority district, but is a 40% or 45% district enough that will trigger some sort of scrutiny? And if not, then it'd be nice to know, don't worry about that.
Well, and that gets a little nuanced, but that wouldn't even qualify as a majority minority district unless you reach that 50% plus threshold that would then trigger all the Voting Rights Act requirements and
I guess
qualifications. And that's when we.
It's not going to get triggered until you hit 50%.
That is correct.
We played around with trying to move districts to, and like you said, 44 was the highest we get.
Good. And finding any district that can reach that 50% threshold has proven problematic. And that's what Professor Persley has looked to, and not problematic, just it doesn't appear possible, generally speaking, other than a few core areas that he's looking at right now.
Thank you. Any further comments?
I just created a majority Hispanic district. Almost there. It's 50.5% Hispanic, but there's some areas that I need to connect, so.
Yeah, 54% Hispanic.
Got to be connected.
Yeah.
Commissioner Facer, Richard wanted to add one more thing.
Okay, please, Richard.
As you guys open the door to this conversation, I would say that regardless of whether the actual formation of a majority minority district is something conceived or able to be done, what is more particularly important is we can overlay a look at where the concentrated centers of Latino or other ethnic and racial minority groups reside, And we do see that a lot of the maps so far that have been produced do still divide those. So when we look at, for example, the west side of Salt Lake City and West Valley City, those are relatively geographically close together, but represent a larger population when we look at the community of interest of Latinos and other minorities. So there's a couple of different nuances, and we'll be making public comments on some of the other maps that we've seen today. But I think the more important thing for you guys to walk away with or to take under consideration is to do that overlay for racial and ethnic minorities for this Latino population, and to then be able to see how your maps are dividing these communities of interest.
Thank you very much.
Just another way of
Yeah,
saying exactly the same thing.
and if you haven't done that, staff can show you how to do those kinds of overlays.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to tell Richard, thank you, and we have been doing that, so I would love to get some feedback from him and his group on some of the maps that we produced.
Coming very shortly.
I actually invited him to come sometime next week and map with her
Okay.
individual team.
Terrific.
Richard, you still online? So if you have not drawn a community of interest that represents your organization, and well, we would highly encourage you to draw in a boundary that represents an ethnic makeup of your organization. That goes a long way. Right now, we don't have a lot of ethnic boundary submissions, and it would help out immensely to have additional submissions.
We actually started working on that. We kind of prioritized getting a state house map done, which as you all can appreciate, this is a very difficult process to go through to spend the time on this, particularly when like our advocacy organizations are all volunteer. So we're doing this stuff similar to you guys outside of other professional obligations and everything. So we do intend to make those comments well before the end of the month though. So that should be coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Richard, I'd like to just make one comment. We tried to follow the census blocks. And the census blocks outlines minority and other that we have there. So I think that's very important you follow, because we can't have you come in and say, well, this is really a minority block. We don't care what the census says. This needs to be put in this area. We have to follow the census block. So that'll be very helpful, because I know Judge Thorne was really pretty thorough in trying to put things together. And we thought the stretching best we could came out to 44%.
Well, and part of our efforts and our delay has been to get a map that based on the census blocks for the exact kind of data you're talking about, to lay that over the mapping programs with Dave's redistricting and all that. So that's why it's taken a little time for us to put that together. But I think that what we present will still be respectful of your comment there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. All right. I believe I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, this meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you very much.